And we're continuing the 10th chapter of the book, the Holy Tanya, the Tanya. Here the Rebbe describes to us what really our goal is. The goal of the Jewish people is to feel the truth and to teach the truth to the whole world. That's why we were chosen. What is the truth? The truth is that God creates everything from love, and the greatest love that God can show is that everybody has a purpose and everybody has a responsibility. The more that a person feels this purpose, the more that he feels God. And the more that he feels his responsibility, as the more active he becomes, the more, you want to say, happy he becomes, enlivened he becomes. The example of a person who's reached this level of feeling God, and was feeling that every detail of my life and every atom of my being is being created by God for a purpose, and that it depends on my free will to actually bring this purpose into reality. The example of a person that was like this type of person is called a tzaddik. This person is called a tzaddik. This is the perfect example. This is called David, King David. David HaMelech. According to Jewish teachings, David HaMelech, he was the Messiah. He was the Messiah, and the Messiah that we're going to be, he was the first Messiah. It says the Maimonides, he was the first Messiah, and the Messiah we're going to be waiting for is going to be what's called Mashiach ben David, the Messiah, the son of David, and he's going to do that same thing. He's going to make everyone aware that God is creating us all the time, and that God is infinitely far distant from any, even the spiritual worlds. But on the other hand, he's infinitely close to us, because he creates everything. He creates the spiritual, but he's also creating us. So he's intimately involved with us every instant. A person that feels this, and really feels this every second of his life and every nuance of his being, every challenge that's put in front of him, and every changing minute, and every person that he sees, as this person is called a tzaddik. If he really feels it, he's really called a tzaddik. But there's different levels of tzaddik. There's a tzaddik who totally feels this, and there's another tzaddik that he feels this, but he also feels himself also. It feels natural. It feels a natural feeling. But the natural feeling that he feels is so small that in comparison to the godliness feeling that he feels and the purpose that he feels, that it's like it's not there whatsoever. And the example is like, for instance, a king who his whole being should be devoted to the people. His whole being should be devoted to the country and to the population, and making the economy well, and everybody feels secure, and to put the proper values into people's lives. The people can function properly and can contribute properly to the world. That's supposed to be a king. A king, ideally, is supposed to be a person that he does not think at all about himself whatsoever. His whole being is just responsibility. He's responsible to the nation, and he's connected to some higher power that allows him to make the right choices all the time. That's a king. But if we have a king that's a little bit, let's say, selfish, a little bit this, so the people are willing to overlook his selfishness, his anger, his this. They're willing to overlook it. Even more, maybe they even excuse it. And they'll say, no, because this is our great king, and our king never makes a mistake, and if he's angry, there must be a reason for it. And so it is with every single Jew. Every Jew is, if you want to call it a king or a son of a king, because every Jew is the son of the king of the universe, Melech HaOlam. If a Jew feels this feeling that he's really the son of God, like it says in the Torah, clearly when Moses went into Paro in the chapter of Exodus, I think it's 4:22, Moses said to God said to Moses, go into Pharaoh, say, my son, my chosen ones, Yisrael, B'ni B'chori Yisrael. So every Jew is really supposed to feel this. And the Jew can feel it to different degrees. This is supposed to be the goal. In fact, we're even given an oath. That's how the Tanya starts off. It quotes the Talmud, that every Jew is given an oath that he must be a tzaddik. You must feel God. You must do everything you can to feel God. And of course, we start off at a very low level, but nevertheless, we're given help by God in order to do it. But we have to do the work on our own. It reminds me of a joke that I heard that there's a big industry, an industry that's owned, the owner of the industry, he's making a big a meal of congratulations to one of the workers that he's worked up to be the assistant manager of the whole place. He says, Joe, you've worked your way up in an amazingly quick way. Just at the beginning of the week, you were a janitor. You worked yourself up to work on the production line, and after that, you were a manager of a production line. And now, in just 1 week, you've worked yourself up to be the top of the crowd. It's a tremendous achievement. My son, I'm really proud of you. It was his own son. Of course, he worked his way up. The same thing, we're sons of God. But for us, it's not so simple. It's not so simple to work our way up to the top. In other words, Tanya even assures us that some people now, at least in our situation that we are now, until the Messiah, the Mashiach actually comes and explains to us how to do it, as we're not able to get to the level of tzaddik, of a complete tzaddik. But nevertheless, we almost strive because we don't know who is able to and who is not able to. like anything else, 1,000 people are tennis professionals, but only 1, 2, 5 really get up to the top. The same thing with piano artists. How many people learn, are concert pianists? Thousands and thousands. How many really make it to the top? The same thing with the Jew, Ma'avdil. To separate, every Jew, of course, must feel God. Not everybody has to be a pianist, and not everybody has to be a tennis champion, but every Jew does have to feel God. In fact, the whole world will feel God. One who really does this is called a tzaddik. That's what's called a tzaddik gamur, a complete tzaddik, like King David. Another example is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. But there's a tzaddik who is not complete, who feels a little bit of himself, like the king was a little bit of an egotist, or a lot of egotist. But still he's a king, and he really is devoted to the people. And so his faults are concealed in the fact that he's a king. They say, listen, this is part of his kingship. He's doing what he has to do with his reasons. We don't understand it. Why he loses his temper sometimes. Why he does this. This is a secret. This is his own private life. But really it's not. In the case of the Jew, really he feels himself, and he's being, in that small way, an egotist. But tzaddik she'eno gomer, that's a tzaddik that's not complete. We're now on the 9th line from the top of the page, Tet Vav 29. Last word on the line, gomer. A tzaddik that's not complete, who is she'eno soneh, he does not hate hasitra achra, he doesn't hate his feeling of being separate from God, but tachlit asina, and an ultimate hatred. He doesn't hate his, his feeling. He doesn't hate that feeling that arouses inside of him. This is what I want. Therefore, therefore he is not disgusted emotionally by his own selfishness. Intellectually, that's called sina, hatred, and emotionally, it's called mus, is disgusted. But kol she'ena sina v'mus, and all the in a Jew, if his hatred and his disgust is not total for his own feeling of separateness, that he's a separate being from God, therefore there remains a little bit of love and pleasure in his egotism. And his filthy garments have not been removed. Like the king, that he becomes an egotist. He gets caught into gambling, into hunting. So if he does it just for his recreation so he can be a better king, okay, but as soon as he starts really enjoying it, he starts really liking it, then he spends more and more time hunting and less time concerned with the people, to the point where any concern about the people disturbs his hunting. But he still is a king. He still makes decisions for the world. He still makes decisions for his country. So here we have a tzaddik And the tzaddik, he's concerned about what God wants. He's concerned about making what the world is a better place. But he also has a few enemies. He's concerned about them and he hates them. And he also has his pleasures that he wants. So little by little it creeps up on him until he becomes to the point where his whole feeling of what godliness is can even be jeopardized. Therefore he doesn't hate, he hasn't removed his filthy garments, his thought, his speech, his action, his desires, his pleasures, his love, totally for this world. In other words, the world has an effect on him. Instead of being like a human being is supposed to be, that he has an effect on the world. We'll learn later on in chapter 24 that it says that Daniel was another example. Daniel, he was also, the Talmud also says that Daniel also was a person that he could have been the Messiah. But Daniel, it says that when he was put into the lion's den, that the lions didn't eat him up, was not really a miracle, because lions by their nature are afraid of a human being. They're afraid of God. And a human being that he really truly is devoted to God, he's like a television set. The program that's shining through him is the oneness of God. It's the oneness of God. But as soon as a person starts to think about himself and be selfish, then the animals, the lions also think about themselves and they become selfish. It says a person that he's a total tzaddik, like King David was, like Daniel. Therefore his bad has not transformed totally to good. Since he still has a little bit of a tendency, how do you say, to cling to his egotism a little bit. He still wants his, what do we call this, his comfort zone. In what we call filthy garments. Their filthy garments means his, in this case, usually garments are thought, speech, and action, but in this case it's also speaking about, what the tzaddik is talking about, his emotions, his personality. Elishu batal b'miyuto, but it is so small, ukalo chashiv, it's like nothing. And therefore nikra tzaddik v'ra is called a tzaddik that is bad, kafuf ubatalo, and it is subjugated and controlled by him, if you want to call it. I think we talked about this before, but it's like if someone, you go into a restaurant, a ultra kosher restaurant, and they serve you a pot of meat stew, and they tell you, but listen, you should know that a little piece of pork fell into this meat stew. We pulled it out. But the law is that the taste of that still remains. That's the law. He says, but if there's more than 60 times of kosher meat against the pork, if there's 60, then it's permissible. How much more so if there was more than 60? 60 is the minimum. If there's 60 against this forbidden taste, permissible. If there's 100, it's for sure. If it's 1,000, for sure it's permissible. But it's not the same thing as if they bring you a stew and never fell any piece of not kosher meat into it at all. Never. Why? What's the difference? Because a piece that never fell in any not kosher meat, as if there falls in, let's say, 1,000th, a little piece of not kosher meat, a piece of, in our case, let's say pork, there falls 1,000th of a thing, but then there's 1,000 against it. But in this piece that there already fell one piece, a little bit, that piece has gone to, that forbidden taste has gone to sleep, but it's still there. And if you add more to it, as that piece will wake up and it'll add up to the new pieces that you put in, to the point that if it gets up to almost 60, and this little piece that fell originally in pushes the piece up to more than 1/60th, the whole thing becomes forbidden. In other words, that's the tzaddik that's not complete. The tzaddik who is not complete is a person who devotes himself to God, he feels God, he thinks about God, he rejoices in God, he has fear of God, he has love of God, his whole being is for God. Something like how we feel about money. It's feeling by him, but a little tiny bit he feels himself. And some it's maybe not such a little bit, and maybe it's such an infinitely small amount. But it's still not the same thing as a complete tzaddik. We'll see, because a complete tzaddik transforms everything that was selfish, that was part of the creation inside of him. He transforms it to creator. He transforms it. We'll see. Okay, and therefore, this person who's the tzaddik that's not complete, ahavos Hashem, his love to God, because he does not hate his own egotism totally, therefore his love to God, it's not the ultimate love. Therefore he's called a tzaddik that is not complete. Usually it goes the other way around. Because he has tremendous love, therefore, the more love he has for God, the more disgust and hatred he has for anything that disturbs this love. V'hine, medregazu, this level, mischalekas l'ravavos medregos, this level, what's called a tzaddik that's not complete, this is divided into thousands and thousands of levels. Benyan miu Torah, how much, how little selfishness the person has inside of himself. Hanishar, which remains that remains from one of the four evil elements. This is talked about in chapter 1. And again, to remind ourselves that the definition of the Tanya, what's called evil, is nothing like the normal definition of what is evil. According to the Tanya, what is evil means anything that does not reveal pure godliness is called evil. It's not evil that a person is going to get punished for. According to the Tanya, a person can be a rasha, an evil person, and he can go to heaven, and he can get all of the rewards of heaven as a person who learns Torah, and he does all the commandments, and he follows every single custom of Judaism. He does everything he's supposed to do, and he gives charity, but everything he does for himself. He feels for himself. According to Judaism, even though you're supposed to love God with all of your heart and all of your soul and all of your might, but if a person doesn't do it, he does good deeds, so it could very well be that those good deeds will overrule and override all of the selfish feelings that he has, and the person's going to go to heaven. He'll go to heaven. It could even be for sure that he's going to go to heaven. But nevertheless, serving God, he didn't really serve God. How could this be? Because the point of the Tanya is that heaven is not the goal of creation. To go to heaven is very nice, and everyone wants to go to heaven. It's a good thing to go to heaven. We have no idea even 1/1,000,000th of the pleasures, spiritual pleasures of heaven, we can't explain in this world. But nevertheless, that's not the goal. The goal is to give God pleasure in this world, and that is done, we'll see in two ways, but one of the main ways is done by the tzaddik. The tzaddik who is transformed his nature totally, that he is exactly what God wants. A person like King David, that every single instant of his life, he's just repaying God what he owes him. God creates us. It says, but if a person doesn't feel that he has this obligation, even a little tiny bit, as that person is called a tzaddik that is not complete. And this level is divided into thousands and thousands of levels of tzaddikim, who are categorized according to how little selfishness they have, and how much good there is against it. Is this little bit of selfishness that he has, is it negated in 60, like we said before, or 1,000, or ravava, or 10,000? And these are, now we have to remember what we're talking about. We're talking about real human life, human personality. This is not talking about a play or a science fiction or some sort of theory for the philosophical theories. This is talking about real action, what a person is actually devoted to in his life and what he really feels, if he really feels the truth, that there's a creator who creates everything. And these people are bechinas tzaddikim arabim. All these people who are tzaddikim, they really feel God, but not totally. They feel themselves also a little tiny bit. These are the tzaddikim arabim shabakol doros. These are the many, many tzaddikim which are in all of the generations. Like it says in the Gemara, that Teim Nasar Alfei Tzaddikaya.